But first of all, thank you to everyone for being here. My name is Kelsey Erickson. For those of you that might not know me yet, I am the Executive Director of Athlete Health and Wellness at USA Cycling. So I oversee SafeSport, anti-doping, our mental health efforts, and now diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I'm excited to share this program with you. It's something that I believe was kind of in the works before, but we never actually pushed over the edge. And so now we're finally able to do that. We were trying to wait for some technical abilities, and then we realized we'd be potentially waiting forever. So we have found some ways around that. So essentially what I'm going to share with you today is the launch of our SafeSport Club Certification Program. And essentially what this is an opportunity for us to recognize our clubs who are putting strategic effort and intentionality behind creating the safest environment possible for their athletes. In building this out, I recognize that not everyone has the same club structure. We have some clubs that literally have one person in them, up to clubs that have hundreds of people. And so the resources available across the clubs are going to be different, and we know that. But nothing that we've put in the program requires really any resources. There's nothing that other than what we already provide. This is a voluntary, no-cost program. You'll complete your submissions entirely online, so there'll be no real resources needed, and we'll tell you exactly how to do that. And you'll be able to earn one of 3 levels of SafeSport certification: bronze, silver, or gold. Bronze essentially means, well, not essentially, it literally means you are meeting all of the current requirements for SafeSport and the minor athlete abuse prevention policies. Having said that, I know, having introduced this to some of our centers of excellence in the lead up to it, that the reality is a lot of the stuff in the bronze level clubs aren't currently doing, even though it's required. And I take responsibility for that. I kind of came into this role right as MAP was being introduced, the minor athlete abuse prevention policies. They've already changed a little bit. The SafeSport code has changed. And so first of all, I don't want anyone to freak out when they look at bronze and recognize, like, oh, we're not even doing that. I know that you're not alone, and we're going to put some resources behind making sure that you know exactly what's expected of you, particularly from the MAP side of things. And I'm actually going to host a follow-up webinar where we can talk through some of that. But essentially what the goal of this is, as I said, is to recognize your efforts. And then also from kind of a marketing communications perspective, we're going to be encouraging parents when they're thinking about putting their riders into clubs to be looking for gold star clubs. And we're going to share with them what that means. So, when you're looking at a bronze, silver, gold option, if you have all 3 options, well, yeah, it makes sense to go to gold because they've done the highest level of prevention possible. Does that mean that nothing bad will ever happen? No, that's not the way we're going to promote it. But we're going to be able to show them, hey, this is what this club has done to earn this status. So the purpose of today is really just to kind of introduce the program. And then following this call, we'll send out the actual documentation, which shows you bronze, silver, and gold status and what that means. We're going to be collecting applications every 6 months. So December 1st would be the first time that a club can submit for their status. And then June 1st would be the next one. So every year, December 1st, June 1st, you could be submitting. I would suspect that it'll take at least, I would guess that most clubs wouldn't be submitting until June of 2021, just based on kind of the reality of life right now and some of the standards that need to be met. But there's nothing on this that you'll be asked to do that I won't provide for you. And also there's not like a punishment. There's no consequence for, being bronze versus silver versus gold. It's more an incentive and a little bit of recognition. And some things will be not feasible. Well, everything on there should be feasible for every club. Some won't be relevant. And so you wouldn't be kind of required to do that part. But yeah, it's very much just with the intent of trying to create as safe an environment as possible for all of our members, not just our junior riders, and then also to give you a little bit of recognition for the hard work that you're doing. So I'm just going to kind of give you an overview of what bronze, silver, and gold look like. Again, I appreciate that you don't have this right in front of you, but it'll give you enough information that if you have some kind of glaring questions or concerns, you can ask that right now, and I can be able to provide you with some feedback on that. So any questions before I kind of get going into the nitty gritty? Okay, you can ask them at any point. But if we start at bronze level, essentially what would be asked of you is that you've identified all applicable adults that are required to do SafeSport training. So this is something that you should have already done. Essentially, you've identified all the adults in your club that are required to do SafeSport training. And the reason they would be required is because they're in a position of power over a minor athlete, or they're in regular contact with a minor athlete. Minor being anyone under the age of 18, regardless of which state you're in. So that would be the first requirement to get to bronze level. And again, that's something that should have already been done and tracked. That was part of our USA Cycling SafeSport audit. Once you've identified them, you then need to track that individual or those individuals. So by that, it means make sure that every 12 months, they're updating their SafeSport training. So the way that I do this at USA Cycling, and it's pretty primitive, I have a Google Doc and I put in their name. So I have to track all of our staff as well as our entire membership. So no big deal. But for our staff, I have a Google Doc where I put our staff's name and then I put the completion date. And then I check it every month. And when they're within a month of expiration, I send them a reminder that they need to go do it. For some of our memberships, our officials and our coaches, am I missing one? Race directors? No, yeah, I think, no. Coaches and officials, they have to do SafeSport training to get our membership. So they will already be tracked. They actually can't buy or renew their USAC license until they've done the training. But for everyone else, it's a manual process. And so that's where we would be reminding them like, hey, you've got 4 weeks before you need to have your SafeSport updated. And so that would just be that quick refresher once they've done the original training. So again, that's every 12 months that they need to be updated. So for tracking purposes, you could use whatever format you would choose. I would suggest a Google Doc just because it's kind of straightforward and easy. And if you ever have questions or like can't figure, like for some reason you can't find out if someone's done training, you can always email me and I can look it up in our database and give you like yes or no and the date. So that's the other piece, that they complete the training every 12 months. And then the other thing, and this is one of the spaces where some of the clubs have mentioned they have not been doing it, but it is actually required, is you're tracking and filing consent forms related to the minor athlete abuse prevention policies. So according to MAP, and that's relevant to anyone working with minors, so again, that's under the age of 18, there's certain things that you're not allowed to be doing with athletes unless you have a consent form. And so like one of those consent forms would be having them ride in a car in a one-on-one situation. And so that's one where you have to have a consent form on file. And so I have those online. If you go on USA Cycling SafeSport and you click under resources with MAP, there's actually one specific to clubs, and on there you'll see some sample consent forms that you are free to either use as they are or tailor them to your club. And so your role in the club would just be to keep track of those. And the best way that I've found to do that is you can have them signed electronically and then just keep them in an email folder of like, here's all the consent forms from 2020. I would never need to ask you for one of those. So it's not something you need to send to me on a, every time basis. The reason you have that is if something got reported, like let's say a mom comes to, or a dad comes to me and says like, hey, my son Jimmy drove in a car with Fred the other day and it was one-on-one and I didn't give permission, then I would be coming to you and say, hey, do you have consent for Jimmy to have gone in that car with Fred? And then you would send me that consent form and then we would know it's fine. But if you didn't have that consent form, then that Fred would be in trouble or would be in violation of MAP policies and we would have to deal with that. So again, not a super formal thing, but just have those on file, keep them in a folder. And you might only have like 1 or 2 a year, because another big space where this would happen, and by big, I mean, we had one, but if you're having a 17-and-a-half-year-old do the SafeSport training because they have to do it within 45 days of turning 18, you would have parental permission for them to do it if they did it 45 days before their birthday. And so that would be a consent form that you would keep on file. That's something I had to keep on file and provide to the center when they audited us. So again, all of that can be found online, and I can send you the links with this documentation after the call, or Parker will, because he's good at that. The other thing that you would be including is any requests to discontinue electronic communication. That's also part of MAP. And so that was in the MAP policy. It outlines that if a parent doesn't want their child to receive any form of electronic communication, so you can't be doing one-on-one electronic communication with the minor, but let's say you sent out like group emails and the parent doesn't want their child to be receiving those, they could send in this request. That's online as well, and you would keep that on file. And then the final thing is just having emergency contact details for all minors stored and accessible and available to whomever is in charge. So that is the totality of the bronze level status. So again, that is current, everything that I've mentioned there is currently required by SafeSport and MAP.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yep.
On the receiving group emails, is that something that we should forward to parents so they have an opt-in or opt-out?
It's a great idea if you can, yeah. I mean, or just include them in the emails. The requirement as far as MAP is just that it's not a one-on-one direct communication. So you wouldn't be breaking any rules by, sending an email to 7 minors with you on it. But I would always err on the side of caution. And so, yes, I think that's a great option of just, hey, are you happy to have your child be receiving these group emails? Yes or no? Or potentially just, would you like to also be on them? Is also a way that you could do that. Yeah, great question. So the next, I see someone's raising their hand for a question. Go ahead.
Sorry, I forget where my mute button is. Kelsey, this might be out of the scope, but as far as coaching a minor, we should probably have that as well, right?
Have what?
Well, are we not allowed to do one-on-one correspondence coaching a minor as well?
Correct. And you also should not be coaching one-on-one in an isolated situation. That's another consent form. So if you're doing one-on-one training in a private setting, that's a consent form that you need to have in advance. And communication.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so with communication, it could be either adding in the parent or any other adult, really, like if you have another co-coach or somebody, just add them in as a CC.
Gotcha.
Or however you want to do that. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
One more quick question.
Go for it.
I remember you have a text number, I believe. A lot of parents just kind of say, leave me alone. I don't really want to be in this thread. And I think it's just handy for everybody to have that text email just so they can, or text number so they can text USA Cycling as they're texting a minor as well. Do you still have that available?
Yes, I do. We were trying to keep it as an internal number, but I do think that we will with this pass it out.
Okay.
There's a text number and there's also an email address that you can use as the copy. Something that you could consider if you wanted to just do it on your own is, so I use, let me look it up. A couple people have the number now as well, because I get some weird messages, but the app that I use, if you wanted to do your own for anyone on this call, is called Sideline. And I think it costs $40 a year, and it just gives you an additional phone number. So I have it on my work phone, and then I can receive texts and phone calls that way. So all of our coaches use this number as their CC number or with texting. So basically what that means is just I have everything on file so that if we ever needed to go back and look at something, I've got a copy of all of it.
That's perfect.
Yeah, so that's been, like I bought that at the beginning of the year, and it was, I mean, like I said, I think it's $40 a year. Just, you can pick your own phone number. And then it's just a great way I can see every text message that's sent by one of our coaches, and I can see I can receive every phone call.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep. Great questions, and feel free to keep asking them as we go. And already based on these questions, a lot of them is around the MAP policy, which again, I admit we did not provide a lot of information on, partly because we didn't get it yet. But we've worked a lot with the center since, just kind of helping them understand the challenges that it posed in cycling, as our sport is not quite as, I don't want to say not as structured, but it's not as straightforward as some of these other ones where it's like you're in a gym and you have these hours. And so we talked to them a lot over the past year, both Shane and I, around kind of like, look, how do we actually implement this in such a way that it's useful for the purposes of which it's designed. So we'll do another follow-up webinar to just kind of talk about, and I'll share with you all some of the things that have worked for us as I've gone kind of over to Europe and traveled with some of our teams and like just kind of lived some of the challenges that this presents, but all the while knowing like we're doing this for the right reason. We just need to figure out how to actually do it in a way that is effective. So yeah, again, interrupt at any time, but essentially just to kind of highlight what the differences look like then as you get to silver and gold. So obviously each one builds on the first. So everything from bronze would apply at silver. The additional aspects are that you're going to provide communication of SafeSport education requirements, including a link to the training at least once a year. So again, nothing on there that you couldn't just copy and paste out of our website. The link is there. It's all free to do the training through USA Cycling, but you're going to send a direct communication to your club members, parents and riders and everyone of, hey, this is what SafeSport education training is. This is how you do it. You know, go ahead, get on that. You'll also provide a direct communication about the map policy to members at least once a year with a link to the map. So again, nothing that you need to create. You could do that all in one email. There's flexibility as far as how you do it. This is just what's being asked of you to do. But again, you don't have to create anything for that. The additional thing would be that you directly communicate what and how to report SafeSport violations. So again, that's all on our website, report SafeSport violations. You would just make sure that that's shared with your community. And, you know, part of the benefit of using this program is like, it's challenging for me to communicate with club members oftentimes because I don't have their direct emails necessarily, and our system's not that great. So we don't even always know who's in what club. So one of the great things about this is like, I'll essentially be sending you the communication and then you're just the conduit to send it back out to your community. So again, not really needing to create anything. You're ensuring that all the applicable adults do SafeSport training within 45 days of joining the club. That's currently a requirement anyways, but again, that goes back to just kind of identifying and tracking them. And then you host an annual SafeSport information session at least once a year. And that can be on Facebook, it can be on Zoom, it can be in person. And I can also be available to do that as well. I will also record some so you can kind of watch them and basically just reiterate and regurgitate what I say if you want to, or you can personalize it to your community however you choose to. But essentially that's just kind of letting them know, like, here's what SafeSport is, here's what it isn't. It's not a place to tell me how much you dislike this person because they like the color green. You know, just kind of letting them know that SafeSport exists and why it's of value and why it's important.
Sorry, I'm going to keep asking you a zillion questions.
Go for it.
The link for the training, you know, yes, we're going to have the adults that are in quote unquote position of power that are helping out, but there are some parents that just kind of hang out and help out as well with bottle feeds or pumping up tires, etc. They don't necessarily have a USA Cycling membership number, and it looked like that was something you had to have in order to do the training. Do I encourage them to sign up with USA Cycling or tell them that they don't have to do it? What do I do about those parents?
So there's a couple things here. One, and I'll kind of come on to this in a second, but so I'll answer this in two ways. There's now additional trainings, and there's one specific for parents. And that one's about 20 minutes. So it's much shorter. There's also age-specific ones. So there's, I believe, preschool, kindergarten, 1st through 3rd, 4th through 5th, middle school, and high school that are now on the website, the Center for SafeSport's website. Part of the gold status is that everyone's doing their age-appropriate one. To be able to do the official one, you do need a USAC number, but you can get that without actually being a member. So that same link shows them how they can create an account. It's not the same as a membership. So it's free to them. It'll trigger the number, and then they enter that number in to get it free.
Okay, got it.
So that's important for anybody that's not a USAC member within your club. We're essentially saying that for this is a blanket a policy. So regardless of whether they're a USAC member or not, they would be identified and asked to do this. Again, it would be no cost to them. And normally the training's $45. So actually they're getting it for free without potentially even being a USAC member. But we're looking across the entire club membership when it comes to what we're expecting of the club.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Keep asking questions. That's doing this. The additional things here would be where applicable, because we know not all clubs have these, but you have a link to our SafeSport webpage on whatever kind of platform you have, like Facebook, Instagram, website, whatever. So a link to USA Cycling's SafeSport program, and then a link to our MAP program on any of your kind of club platforms. And then you document emergency one-on-one situations. So this is part of the MAP requirements right now. So let's say a minor, breaks their leg and you're the only one that can take them to the hospital, but you don't have permission from the parent to drive them one-on-one. You would take the kid to the hospital, but then you would document afterwards, like, hey, this was the situation. And then the parent, provides their post signature or whatever of like, yep, I'm aware this happened. So that's an emergency situation, and you just keep that on file. The only other requirements here then are that you have a best practices MAP presentation at least once a year. So again, that could be in person, online. I can do it. I'll record some. You can copy them or you can share them. And then one adult in your leadership has CPR training. One adult has first aid training. All of your board of directors and officers have a background check on file, a current one. And then there's a yearly check that all applicable adults have completed SafeSport training. For CPR and first aid, there's no specific company that has to be through. I know lots of, our members have it through NICA or other organizations. There's no requirement of it has to be from this group or that group. It would just be documentation that at least one of your leadership has it. And you would just send that in. And then for the background checks, hopefully that you all have access to NCSI now. I can't remember what they call it, like a grandchild account or something. Basically, you would email NCSI directly, and I can give you the contact details if you don't have them already. But you can email them directly and say you want to create a sub-account under USA Cycling, and then they will set that up for you, and then you can direct all of your individuals to that. Our background checks are $40, I think, now. Does that sound right, Parker?
Seems a little high, but in that ballpark.
Either 35 or 40. I know it's one of those two. So err on the side of caution, they're 40. But that you now have access to the exact same background checks that we use as USA Cycling. So if you want to set that up, that's a great resource that you can make sure everyone has the same background checks. And that's it. So that's silver status. And again, nothing there that you need to do on your own unless you want to, which you certainly can. I'm also here as a resource, so don't hesitate to reach out, and I would be happy to help out. The only difference then at the gold standard is that if you have any members that are 17 turning 18, you would have them complete the SafeSport training by their 18th birthday. So in those 45 days leading up to their 18th birthday, they complete the training and you have that on file. You would provide information about the SafeSport education twice a year instead of once. Could be the same email sent twice, not very challenging. Same with MAP. And then this we kind of touched on already, but you would have 20% of parents of minors complete SafeSport training. And that could be either the parent specific one or the SafeSport one, the official SafeSport trained. So you would essentially identify the parents in your group, and 20% of them would complete the training. If I were you, I would be strongly encouraging all parents to do it, but that's not a requirement. But I think it's important for them to know what to look out for, how to be engaged, and how to be an active advocate in this space. The only thing that might seem confusing on here is we say you have a designated SafeSport champion. All that means is that you clearly identify one person in your club that is essentially the point of contact and the reference for anything and all things SafeSport and MAP. So you don't need to hire someone for this. It would just be like, hey, Parker is the person in our club that you go to with any questions or concerns you have about SafeSport. And then Parker is dialed and ready to go to me at USA Cycling with concerns or to direct that person wherever is appropriate. So just making sure that everyone in your community knows that they have someone to go to, so that if and when there's a question or an emergency, there's no time wasted trying to figure out who do I go to. I know exactly who to go to. And the other requirements here are that all minors complete age-appropriate training. So that goes back to what I said about the center now has age-specific trainings, including one for adult versus adult abuse, which is really valuable too, because we know this does not just happen to minors. So all your minors would complete age-appropriate training, and those ones are designed to be completed by a child and their guardian. So they're more like, you know, with the preschool one, it's like, hey, don't use mean words, like we use nice language, that kind of thing. And then it goes up with their ages. You also provide itineraries to parents and legal guardians of minors if you ever go on overnight trips, which is actually supposed to be required anyways. You advertise the code of conduct on your club platform, and that can be either your own code of conduct, or if you want to use ours, USA Cycling's, which you can find on our webpage on our SafeSport program, you're welcome to do that. Also happy to help with some kind of, you know, feedback if you're thinking of creating your own. And then the final things would be that you have an established channel for reporting and reviewing MAP violations within the club. So that could be as simple as an email address or, you know, a platform on your website. All volunteers complete SafeSport training prior to participating. This is something that we're going to look to do as an organization as well. But, you know, if you've got people that are volunteering on a regular basis, we want them to be informed. And so they can also take the training for free. They acknowledge receipt of MAP. So they acknowledge that they're aware and recognize and know what MAP is. They don't necessarily have it memorized, because none of us do, but they've received it and they know that it's in effect. And then the final thing would be that you host an annual club town hall meeting to address SafeSport related questions or concerns. And again, that could be matched up with one of the other trainings, and it can be virtually or it can be in person. The one thing I forgot to say is I'm going to be hosting, starting probably in September, I'm going to start hosting weekly or bi-weekly SafeSport training sessions, where it's not going to be the SafeSport trained that they get certification for, but it'll be like the parent one, where we can go through it and stop and ask questions and do kind of like scenario type situations of like application and cycling. Then at the end of it, I will send out a questionnaire to everyone, a Survey Monkey with like 3 questions, and that will be how I take attendance. And so you could knock out your 20% of parents in one of those sessions, where you don't even have to be a part of it. They just sign up, they participate, and then I can send out the attendance of who was a part of that. So those will be something that we'll start hosting in September, and we'll kind of do it on a kind of how many people show up, and if it starts to peter out, we'll stop and we can start again. But that'll be one way that we can start to kind of train up a bunch of people. We could also do it with volunteers. You know, if you've got an event coming up and you're like, hey, you know, we've got these 40 people, but we don't want to like wait for them to do it individually. Cool. 1 hour, Thursday night, 5 to 6. I'm just making this up, but you know, we'll get them all online on Zoom and we'll get it done together. So I'm available for that as well. And, you know, I'll do some kind of ones that I set up, but if there's one that you as a group are like, no, this would be great if like our club specifically could do it before this event, feel free to let me or Parker know and we can make that happen. So that's pretty much it. I know that's a lot of information. Also, you don't have it in front of you, so don't worry if you didn't write it all down. We'll send it all out. But the purpose of tonight was just to kind of be able to talk you through it rather than just sending it, because I know the first time we just sent it, it kind of freaked people out. But it's not meant to be scary, and it's also not meant to ask anything of you above and beyond what you're already doing, other than to potentially keep track of it, and then to send out some more communications. And when it comes to how you'll submit this, it's going to be pretty rudimentary, because as you know now, my process is still very rudimentary, but you'll basically just be submitting this all online, and it would just simply be like a screenshot of some of this stuff. So it could be a screenshot of the first aid and the person's name. It can be access to the Google Doc or a screenshot of the Google Doc with the applicable adults. It's a, you know, an email, screenshot of the email that you sent out on this date, about map, that kind of thing. So it'll be very basic, and you'll be able to submit it all on Google or whatever platform we end up having set up. But very minimal effort. And essentially it's just a way for us to all be tracking this a little bit better. So with all of that information, any more questions, comments, anything that I could do to make this easier for you? Or I will be scheduling a map webinar for later this month or early next month, where we can kind of walk through that policy a bit more in its detail, because there are some kind of nuances in that. But yeah, any questions? Julia?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I'm just trying to figure out like what we should put on our website and how to, like, just in my mind, how to get more parents to participate. And it's also gonna be hard because I'm sure like a lot of the other coaches and directors on this call, we're in the process of renewing for next year. And
Yep.
the team for 2021, and we're accepting applications. We're trying to figure out what our team's gonna look like. So yeah, just trying to figure out if I can get it done this year, next year, but.
Well, and there's no rush. Like I would imagine, I mean, obviously like it's great to do it soon, but you know, I'd say there's probably, like, I'm just guessing there's probably a few clubs that'll be done by December. Most likely the early, like the majority that would actually be close are going to be in June. And it's kind of a nice time to launch it right now too, because there's not as many activities going on. And so it gives us some time to kind of work through the kinks and get, kind of see how some of this works in practice. Oh, the thing I forgot to mention is you'll get so we've just put it together, but you'll basically get a badge that's the USA Cycling SafeSport logo, and it'll either be in gold, bronze, or silver. So that'll be something that you'll be able to advertise on all of your kind of materials, your websites, etc., so that you'll have a visual that shows what your status is as a club. And somewhere down the line, we're hoping to do this also for events, you know, kind of have gold standard SafeSport events. And, you know, this will hopefully be the beginning of mini, like we're kind of internally building this out as like a Girl Scout, Boy Scout, like sash. Yeah, that's the word. Sash of like, you've got your SafeSport badge, you've got your maybe down the line Clean Sport, DEI, like there's lots of room to grow on this, but the first step for us was SafeSport. So if, you know, if you're experiencing challenges, let me know. If there's things that like, if there's a bunch of clubs having similar challenges, we can do things like this where it's, you know, mass communication. But I'm here for a resource. This is not designed to be a challenge. It's really designed to be recognition for your hard work.
On our website, if we're gonna add our code of conduct, either yours or our own, should we also have the 3 policies of grievances for administration, rider eligibility, and member discipline?
You could do that, or you can just put the link to our SafeSport website, and that has all that as well. Okay. So it's kind of up to you, but like when you click on our SafeSport website, or it says like SafeSport program, and then you click on that box and then it lists every policy. So, you know, that's kind of up to you how you want to do that.
Okay. Okay.
All right. Well, I don't see any more questions. Obviously, if you have more or anything comes, feel free to email Parker or myself or both. But yeah, essentially this is live. We'll get it up on the website at some point, but we'll send it to you in a sweet PDF version for now, because I can do that. So we'll get that out to you, and you can kind of start working through it, seeing what it's going to look like. And maybe kind of identifying where the challenges are going to be and where you want to get started. And then I will let you know, or we'll get out an invite for a map follow-up. And again, don't be alarmed as you're looking at it and go, oh, I don't even know what this is. We will start being more engaged, communicating more, and we're in this together. So don't feel bad, don't stress. And yeah, thank you for your time.